In this video, I'm going to be going through the drawings, so the isometric orthogonal task 3. And what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking these, I've got 6 isometric drawing, 6 orthogonal drawings, and we're going to convert these ones into isometric and these ones into oblique. So it really should be orthogonal pictorial, but we tend not to do much oblique. So we'll go through that anyway. Okay, so the first one here, we're told that everything is drawn from the perspective of the red arrow, which is from the bottom right. I'm sure there was a good reason for that, but everything is drawn from the bottom right. So in the case of the first drawing, if I'm drawing oblique, what I really do is if I have a front view, I just copy that front view. And so my front view looks something like this. Now, say you just copy the front view, it's probably not quite as simple. So as conceptually copying the front view will help you out pretty good, to go a fair way. But then I'm going to draw these lines here at 45 degrees, and then I'm going back, looks like it's, presumably it's going to be 20 mil from the front that we have this object here, and I'm now going to draw that up at 30. So that's 20, that's 30, and it's 40 long. Yeah, that looks about right. I'm going back another, we're going to say that it's split halfway. Where we don't have full information, we can make reasonable assumptions. And my object should look something like that. That's what now, you'll notice that I have drawn extra lines here. That's because I've used construction lines. We draw construction lines with a sharpened 2H pencil. Then we do our thick dark lines using a 0.5 mechanical pencil. Back in my day, the only brand that sold mechanical pencils, widely available were Pacer. These days, there's a zillion. If you go to Kinokuniya, you can get some pretty interesting ones that have pencil and paste and stuff. I used to have this brand that I used to really like called Mitsubishi Bees, B''S. They no longer sell them. There was one point where I found them being sold in Romania, and I'm like, am I going to try and buy them from Romania? Yes. Okay. So when you draw with your HB mechanical pencil, your 0.5 mechanical pencil, make sure that you press down, you hold the pen pretty well perpendicular to the paper, so that way you're getting the full width of the paper, of the lead, rather than if you hold it at an angle, you're gonna get a beveled line. Okay, so that's the first one. That one I did pretty quickly. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect because we're freehand sketching. So I'm going to do the second one now. The second one, remember that the even numbers are supposed to be drawn in isometric. Sorry, in yes, in isometric.
Isometric.
That's right. Okay. So, what I'm going to start off with isometric is I always start off with the crow's foot. So that's my crow's foot, that's my 30-20, and I'm looking at, well, where am I going to start? I'm going to start in this corner, that's where I've been told to start. So I have a block that's 20 mil by 20 mil by, so it's 20 mil wide, 20 mil high, and it's 40 minus 16, so it's 24 back, right? So it's 20, 20, 20, and 24 back. Now, so this is where you should use construction lines, because there I drew that one too long. Okay, so then I can measure the whole length of the whole width of this thing is 98. So 98 mil to the whole thing. And once I've measured 98, I could then go back 20. So it gives me this mark here. Does that look about right? Maybe a little bit higher.
Is that the top?
Okay, I'm drawing my lines vertically up. Now I'm going to draw, using my set square, I'm drawing a 30 mil line across. I'm measuring 20 mil up here, drawing across, using the set square again here, set square again here, measuring back 24, going across. Well, that looks a little bit bigger this time. I'm going to adjust that just to make sure. This line here, I should be able to draw all the way across. So, that'll do. I'm going to run out of space for this drawing. I can see 24, and then the rest of the object. Excuse me, people, I'm recording. Please don't talk. 50. I don't want to send people out, but I will. Okay, now that I've got my construction lines drawn, I can now start going over this in more detail. That might come because of the height. I think that'll come there. Again, I mean, I'm drawing this freehand. You're supposed to be drawing this freehand as well. Now, that line shouldn't be there. I made a mistake with that one. Now, you don't rub out construction lines, but if you get, if you make an error with your thick dark lines, you do have to erase those. Okay, so the second object should look something like that. Something like that. Okay, we're going to go to the third object. The third object is again drawn in oblique, and I can see why I have chosen this one to be oblique, because we've got a very easy front view, and there's not really much else happening that's interesting. So what I'm drawing across is I'm drawing 30 across. And I'm going down 72. And then I'm going across 100. So we're saying that that's 34. Yeah, that's about right. We're going up. Well, that dimension's been cut off on my drawing. Do you guys have that dimension? No. Okay, we can determine it. It's 72, so 32 minus 72, it's going to be 20. So it's 20. That's 50. And so that's the front view. I've just basically redrawn that front view, and then I just need to draw it back. The width of the object isn't given, but I'm going to say it's 20. This one is not supposed to be an isometric.
No, not that one I'm talking about.
Yeah, these are supposed to be in oblique.
Yeah.
So oblique's pretty easy to draw. You just go back at 45 degrees. So something like that, and it's hard for me to get this angle right with no freehand. You're allowed to use drawing implements. Now, it is missing a line. Now, if you forget to darken a line, no one's going to, I don't think many people will take that mark off. So if I forget to darken this line, probably okay. You shouldn't, but it's probably okay. But I'm missing at least one line. What else am I missing?
On the inside.
Yeah, so that there needs to end there. Okay, so that's what we're sort of looking at here. So if this was worth 3 marks, which it could be, this is a good example of something that might be worth 3 marks, I'd be looking to see that you got the overall shape and dimensions correct, which is a good place to talk about scale. If the scale says 2:1, that means it should be twice as big, the same as 2/1. If it says 1:2, it means it should be half the size. So based on the dimensions shown, on the numbers shown on the picture, you should draw your object. If it says 2:1, twice as big. If it says 1:2, it should be half as big. So there's generally, for 3 marks, I would say one is that if you drew, let's say I drew comparatively, let's say I drew this shape, right? Let's say I just did that. I'd give that 1 mark. I'd say, well, conceptually you've shown me that it's roughly, very, very roughly the right shape. And you at least understand what an oblique drawing is supposed to look like. So you've done that, but you've left out detail and just the fact that it's, the quality. So even if you then included this missing detail, if you then included this and this, I'm still only giving that 2. And the reason for that is there's freehand and freehand. Now, I think that freehand's pretty good, right? If I was drawing that for a client, they would know what I was talking about. But it's not even close to being the right dimensions. There hasn't been a legitimate attempt to try and draw this in the right way. So that's where I'm looking at for 3 marks. Is it doesn't need to be perfect. The whole idea of freehand means it doesn't need to be perfect, but there's 1 mark for the general shape, 1 mark for knowing the right method of drawing, and then another mark I would say is for not including details. So like leaving those details out would cost you the mark. I'll also point out that I do not like feathering, right? I just spoke to a student about this today. Don't do this, right? This is called feathering, and it's not acceptable in technical drawing, right? Don't do that. That is bad. Bad. Don't do that. Right? Just in case people don't do that. Bad. Don't like that. Okay. On to drawing number 4. Okay. So my front view that I'm looking at. My front view that I'm looking at. Actually, because we're doing isometric. Yeah, no, it's isometric, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to start a little bit lower. I got into trouble starting too high earlier, so I'm going to start a little bit lower down here. So I've got my crow's foot, and I'm drawing something that's 80 and 15 up. So, yeah, I guess we'll call that 15. Call that 80. 15. So it goes in 5. In 5. We go across another 15. We're going up. Does it show the height of those objects? No. Because I don't have the height of the object, I'm just going to draw it. I'm going to measure off the drawing, assume the drawing that I've provided is to scale. Take a reasonable assumption. Again, we're doing this freehand, so it doesn't really matter. What is the distance back? Well, we're told that these are 40. 40 minus 16, that's going to be 24. So we're going back 24 here. So it's 24 back. Oh. And then this is 15. The total height is 50. So I've got that height, and then I'm going to go more or less. Okay. That's a little
Oh, I just realized something. I accidentally skipped the fourth one. I'm doing it. Usually accidentally mess it up, so. So every second one's asymmetric. Yeah, I've accidentally done that.
5. Yeah. Going across 15. Going in 5. Going across 15. Okay, so that's generally my shape. We're now going to go over it and think dark lines. Now this is probably more advanced than what I will give you in the exam. Well, actually, this is substantially more advanced. Of course, it's not an exam, it's a mid-course review, it's an assessment task. It will be more complicated than a cube.
It's one from the prelims.
What's that?
Draw that in third angle. Number 6 is.
Oh, is it prelims?
Well, there's the 23rd.
Isn't that?
It's draw that in third.
That's it.
Now you'll notice there that I'm not erasing that line. That line can stay because it's in construction line. I can. And now there's a bit of a curve in this line here. I'm not concerned about that, right? If we're talking about freehand drawings, which is what we're doing here, I can accept that line. What I'm looking at is the general shape is correct, right? The dimensions are generally correct, it's proportionally correct. As long as it's roughly to the right scale. So I haven't established, because I'm drawing at an enormous scale, because I'm drawing a whiteboard, doesn't matter. I've got my angles are mostly correct. Even if they're not perfect, at least I can tell looking at this that it's an isometric drawing. And then I'm looking for things like, have I forgotten this detail? This detail here is where people would commonly make mistakes. So this detail up here, making sure that this line here is not dark, but these lines are dark. And that can be a bit of a conceptually difficult thing to evaluate, but the idea is here there's no break, whereas here there's a bend. So there is a bend where you would see a line. Okay, we'll move on to question 5. So the first thing is I'm looking at is what does the front of my object look like? The front of my object, this is actually interesting because the picture is cut off, it's actually quite difficult to figure out exactly what's going on here. From that side, I'm curious as to there's a line here, which I'm not sure what's going on there. It looks like it's coming out at 90 degrees, so I'm almost concerned there's a line that shouldn't be there. It's gone 50, maybe the width of that whole object is not 50, so that's what I'm going to assume. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by drawing this first rectangle. This rectangle is 50, 56, we'll call it 60, we'll call it 70. Okay, it is hard to draw this because there's some dimensions missing, but we're going to call it 70 by 12. Okay, 70 by 12. And I'll continue this line going, no, I don't need that one. Okay, once I've got 70 by 12, I'm going to say that we're going to go back 10 millimeters. Notice I can definitely see that object goes all the way out. That is really tough. There's no line here, but there's a line there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say that that line should not have been there. We're going to say that that line down the bottom I might modify that for future homework people. So if you're wondering what line is he talking about, that's 15. Okay, we're going to go back at 45 degrees. Well, and then so for this object here, we're told it's 20 by 20. So it's here and here. That's where that cut is. And then how far back is it from that cut? It's a 20 and then another 10. And how tall is this object? This object here is 18.
That can be in this video.
Okay. So, we've run into the top of the board.
I've just started everyone watching this video.
Mr. Button, please stop talking. Stop talking. Second time I'm asking you, Mr. Button. Now, the difference between my drawing and what's shown, I can't figure out why this line is here on our original drawing. Because it's cropped, because the side view is cropped, I can't figure out what's going on there. So because I can't figure out what's going on there, I'm just going to have to say that I'm removing it. Right. Continuing on with question 6. So this question, I needed to restart it because it wouldn't fit on my board. So it's the base of this. What we're going to draw is draw the base first, and the base is 90 by 52. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I can fit 90 by 52. So I'm going to draw this at half the size I've been drawing everything else. And I know it's a little bit lopsided, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this side. Well, now, I'm obviously not drawing these with a set square, but I can look at that angle and say that angle's a bit too steep. So, I'm going to draw that again. A bit wonky. Going to take another crack at it. Again, you are allowed to use set squares. So even where I say it's freehand, you are allowed to use set squares to help you get your angles. Now, there is a name for isometric drawings that are drawn at 45 degrees instead of 30 degrees. They're called axiometric. And they are used by architects. Architects use axiometric. Let's see how my scale is going to be. So it's just don't think I can fit. Can I fit number 2 on here? 30. Yeah, okay. Looks like I can maybe just make it fit. And on 52. Okay, I am doing it my regular scale, but I'm going to just make it fit. The height of this base is 12 millimeters. So I've got that about right. Okay. And if I was keen, I could even draw that now. That looks okay. I can live with that. Okay, that'll do. Now, I then have to take the chamfer off. The chamfer, we're told, is 10. So we're taking 10 off each of these. And so I'm measuring 10 and then just drawing those lines. And so those lines should be horizontal or vertical lines. And then, in from that base, how far? We're 6 mil in from the base, and we're drawing viewed from that direction. So 6 mil off the base, and then how far from that edge? 22. Okay, so this is 10. I've got somewhere like there. That's the where this base is coming through, and this is at 6. Bit wonky, but it's a construction line, so it doesn't matter. Then, how wide is this object that's sticking out? It's 40 by, they don't really give us a great deal of details. I have to add it up. It's an internal object, what's going on there? Looks like there's an opening, there's an actual hole inside here. Okay, so we've got a base, another 8 mil. And then we have 38. We're 6 mil from the edge, but how wide are the walls? The walls are 8. Yeah, that's okay. These walls are 8. So this is the hole in the middle. This object here is the hole in the middle. So there'll be a line there. I don't know how much of that we'll be able to see, but we'll be able to see some of it. We're going to go up 10 for these walls. We don't typically need to erase construction lines. If you make a mistake, I guess you can. This line's going to be a lot taller than that, but this is internal. Now, how tall is that bat? It's 40 less 12, so 8 gets us to 20, so it's going to be 28 tall. We'll see that here, so this is now again, I don't really need to remove that construction line, but I am going to, just to make things a little bit easier to see what's going on. Now, okay, to draw this, this is tough. Okay, to draw the 45-degree line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw across 10, and then I'm going to go up 10, and that will give me my 45-degree line. So that gives me a 45-degree line. From there, I can draw across until I hit my 45-degree line, and that will tell me how wide this thing needs to be. Again, that's pretty tricky, and you can see now I'm starting to get a fairly complicated board. At this point, I could start thinking about actually, it looks like that hole in the middle is totally unseen. But at this point, you could start actually, I'm hesitant to start putting construction lines, but I would consider at this point saying, well, I know this shape at this point is finalised. Again, this is a fairly complicated, this is the sort of thing that I would put maybe at the end of year 11 as a preliminary question at the end of year 11. It's worth mentioning that pictorial drawings, including isometric drawings, weren't in the test, weren't in the paper for a long time, like more than 5 years. There was no pictorial drawings. And I started to wonder if I should even be wasting time teaching them, to be honest. But then, in 2020, a bad year for some, out of nowhere there was a isometric drawing question. Now, my class actually did relatively well on the isometric drawing class because they just took a punt, and no one was expecting one. None of my students were expecting one, but there it was, and they just took a guess at it. Okay. So the thing I have to do now is I have to draw this 8mm wall all the way around. So I'm just getting how big is 8mm? It's about that big. Okay, so my object, this object in the middle, well, it's almost done. It turns out we didn't need to find this hole here at all. So if you're looking at this, that can save you some time. I'm actually going to remove part of this line just to make it a little bit easier for people to see on the video. Now, at this point, I'm going to show the chamfers and the base, mark that out. That line drops down, we can't see anything past that, but we can see a line here. Now, I'm a little bit too lazy to calculate that one at the back, so I've just drawn it as a line. I kind of looked at how big this one needed to be and used that as my guide, but it is important that that you do give it some consideration. Now, that's pretty busy, and that's what yours will look like too. When you're drawing all these construction lines, you're going to say, wow, all of this stuff going on, I have to sort of squint to see my object. Now, I said that we don't remove construction lines, but just in this case, just to try and give us an idea of what the overall shape will look like, I'm going to remove where I can some of the easier construction lines to remove, just to help you to see the object, and I think that's going to make it easier for you to conceptualize what you need to draw. Now, like I said, this is a hard question, way harder than I'm going to give in the first assessment task. Way harder than I'm going to give in the first assessment task. It's right up with the difficulty that I might give at the end of the year, but there we go. The object should look something like that. The reason I'm particularly looking for this is because I'm using this as a resource. Yeah, something's wrong there. That line should not be there. That line should be like, I think it drops away into the distance. Yeah. Given the length of that line. So that's what it'll look like. Just trying to see if there's any lines I've forgotten. Can anyone spot any? We can't see the base in the bottom, which is what that hidden detail is showing, the circle. Yeah, I think that's right. What would have been more interesting? It probably would have been a more interesting drawing if I had shown that it had to be drawn from the bottom left. If I was going to change this video, change this resource, I'd actually make it viewed from the bottom left. I made it viewed from the bottom right, so we can't see the opening that we otherwise might be able to see, which would be more interesting. But Still useful nevertheless. Possibly I might even append this video and add in another version, another viewpoint, because I might change homework next year. But that'll do.